Most people watch the stock market to see how the economy is doing, but Wall Street also watches something else when they're evaluating the health of the economy, and that is corporate bond spreads. What are those? I promise it sounds complicated, but it's actually simple. So when companies need to borrow money to pay for something, they go out and they get a loan, just like you or I would go out and get a loan if we wanted to buy a house or a car. Now, companies can borrow money from banks just like you or I can, but they also have another option. Companies can also borrow money from investors like Vanguard or Fidelity. When companies borrow money from investors, they do this by issuing corporate bonds. A bond is just a fancy word for a loan. The US government also borrows money from investors. That's what treasury bonds are. So here's the key. When we talk about spreads, the market is just comparing the interest rate that companies have to pay on their bonds versus what the US government is paying on its bonds. The difference between those two numbers, that's what we call the spread. For example, if a 10-year treasury bond has an interest rate of 4%, but Google is paying 4.5% on their 10-year bonds, that spread, the difference between that 4 and 4.5%, that's the spread. Now, spreads show us how much risk investors believe there is in the market. If investors think the economy is strong, that spread stays small. But if investors start to worry about companies paying back their debts, spreads will widen out because investors think there's more risk, and so they want to get paid a higher interest rate. Here's the wild part. Historically, widening spreads have been a strong indicator that a recession may be on the horizon. So the next time you hear someone talk about corporate bond spreads, now you'll know what they are, and it's just the difference between the interest rate the government is having to pay on its debt versus the interest rate companies are having to pay on their debt. That's it.